Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And one of the real high spots about the NATO summit for me was seeing Svetlana Tikhanovskaya and seeing her joy at finally having her husband released. And I wonder, Ms. Dubakova, if you think there was any particular significance to Lukashenko releasing those prisoners. And my understanding, based on what we've been able to determine, is that there was nothing promised to him in that prisoner release except for a public presentation with the prisoners. So can you tell us anything about that and what you think it means?
Patriots, you better sit down for this one, because what we just witnessed is the kind of bold, unapologetic leadership that makes you proud to be an American. After decades of weakness bowing to our enemies and watching spineless politicians pay off terrorists with pallets of our hard-earned tax dollars, President Donald J. Trump just reminded the world who's in charge. While Obama and Biden coddled the Iranian regime, President Trump launched Operation Midnight Hammer and obliterated Iran's nuclear facilities with the force of 1,000 American Eagles. And guess what? Within just 48 hours of that historic strike, he brokered a ceasefire. That's right. Not with weak words or meaningless speeches, but with strength. That's how you bring peace to the Middle East. That's how you earn respect around the globe. But of course, the fake news media can't handle it. They're panicking. They're leaking. They're lying just like they always do. And don't even get me started on CNN's Natasha Bertrand. The queen of hoaxes and misinformation herself is back, trying to spin this massive victory into a scandal. But we see right through it. This video isn't just about what happened in Iran. It's about Trump's comeback, America's rising strength, and how the radical left is losing their grip on the narrative. So buckle up, hit that like button, subscribe, and let's break it all down.
Again, as I said in my opening remarks, I'm really grateful to the United States and to President Donald Trump for this leadership. I think it's really important, and it saves lives, as we see. And that also gave a lot of hope to the movement, to the democratic movement of Belarus. Svetlana Tikhanovskaya is now with Sergei Tikhanovsky in Poland, and they're actually meeting with President Duda and later with Minister Radosław Sikorski, who really supported Sergei while he was in prison. And then they actually have a rally when people would appear and would protest. So I think that's also significant that people can unite once again. That became such a hopeful and emotional moment for everyone. When it comes to concessions, and what Alexander Lukashenko might have got from it. Of course, we don't have these details at this point, and I think he's so desperate to get out of isolation that this meeting, this handshake, and these hugs that he was presented with, that was enough. The question is what he would need next to release more prisoners. And I believe that pressure here is important because that's, again, the tool and leverage over Lukashenko. He wants sanctions to be lifted, and that's something where we can negotiate with him regarding this. So that's crucial. And it's also important not to legitimize Lukashenko before, of course, he gives concessions and all political prisoners are released and repression stops.
I certainly agree with that. There was a great deal of interest at the summit with all the players that we met with about the status of the Graham-Blumenthal sanctions legislation and the importance of passing that to put pressure on Russia. Can each of you speak to whether you think that would be important for us to do and whether that might help to move Russia?
1. Operation Midnight Hammer. Trump gave the green light, and our unmatched military delivered a masterclass in precision and power. 3 of Iran's nuclear facilities gone, just like that. That's leadership. 2. Ceasefire secured. You know what the left said? Trump will start World War III. Instead, he ended a 12-day war. Iran and Israel both laid down arms. The world moved a step closer to peace, and that's what Peace through strength looks like 3. Obama-Biden versus Trump. While the last administration shipped cash to our enemies, Trump shipped fighter jets. End of story. 4. Global validation. Even the United Nations, Israel, and yes, Iran all admitted the nuclear threat has been wiped out. That's how decisive the strike was. 5. NATO bows to Trump. At the NATO summit, our allies finally agreed to pay their fair share 5% of their GDP in defense. For years, America carried the load. Trump said no more, and they listened.
Generally, we don't comment on ongoing legislation, but I will say that any pressure on the Russian regime, on President Putin and his oligarchs and cronies, is generally positive for a couple of reasons. One, for demonstrating and exercising leverage, and the ability for the United States to use that leverage in service of a particular end. But second, I think it's also a real symbol of the United States' resolve, that the United States continues to be very concerned about this, that we're united, and that there are policies that are in place, and there are efforts being made to do something about that. And I think that sends a very powerful signal.
So generally speaking, targeted sanctions that tries to limit or curtail the ability of an autocratic elite.
Yeah, maybe I should be clear about what's in this bill. This is secondary sanctions on those countries who would do business with.
Right. Yeah, so I was
oil.
leading up to it, absolutely. So generally speaking, sanctions do serve as a specific important instrument of leverage. So we begin, there's literature on targeted sanctions, and then there's a lot of literature on secondary sanctions. These work as mechanisms of curtailing the ability of given countries such as Russia to basically proceed with whatever the game plan is. And so it offers the United States and its allies a toolkit that could be utilized against Putin's regime. It's not a silver bullet, but
No, I understand that.
of course, but in of itself, it does offer us an important mechanism of leverage in curtailing some of their capabilities.
Thank you. Do you agree with that?
I certainly agree that this is important. Belarus became a loophole for Russia. Russia is avoiding sanctions thanks to Belarus, thanks to the regime. And Belarus is also collaborating a lot now with China and Iran. There was even a project to build a production site for Iranian drones in Belarus, so that's one of the examples how this collaboration looks like. China has become the second trade partner of Belarus. That's now around 10% of trade that goes to China, but that's still significant because, again, that's the second trade partner. And of course, when it comes to banks, Russia is also avoiding sanctions via Belarus through banks. So I think all of this would be really important to tackle these loopholes, because what the regime is striving on is this kind of loopholes where it can still do their businesses. And there have been also numerous examples of this.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, can I raise one other issue?
Yes, ma'am.
Last week in the Foreign Relations Committee, we had several experts testifying in advance of the NATO summit. It was on NATO. And they both made a point that I think is sometimes overlooked, and that is 2 points, actually. One is that Russia is militarizing in a way that goes beyond their capability or their capacity and need to address the war in Ukraine. And they are doing it with a very deliberate intent to, after Ukraine, attack another NATO country. The second point they made was that it is not in America or Europe's interest to lose Ukraine as an ally, because they have the biggest army in Europe, they have the most technologically equipped fighting force in Europe, and to allow that army and that capacity to go into the Russian orbit would be a huge detriment both to the NATO alliance and to the United States. Again, is that something that you all would say is an analysis that you could agree with?
Thank you, Senator Shaheen. I absolutely agree with that. I think it's very clear that Russia, although it has referred to its war footing as partial mobilization, that by any kind of conventional measure that it is a total war footing. The mobilization of vast sectors of the economy and the impressing of hundreds of thousands of people into military service every year, and also other means of producing the material and the means of war making, not just on Ukraine, but broader aggression in Europe. I think there's a number of assessments that have been made by our allies in Europe, including intelligence chiefs, saying that they believe that Russia's rather impressive, I should say, powers of regeneration would likely be able to be used against a NATO state within 5 to 10 years. And so that's something I think we all have to be thinking about when we're looking at the cost of a bad peace, because what we have in Ukraine is a country that has shown itself to be battle-tested, militarily potent, and a society that is resilient and strong and has withstood, I think, something that is unimaginable, and yet has in many cases bested the Russians with meager support when it comes down to it from the world. So in that case, in that sense, I think that there's a really strong case to want to work with the Ukrainians and to try and do everything we can to ensure that Russian aggression does not spread elsewhere in Europe.
Thank you. I know I'm out of time. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
6. Lower gas prices. Higher hope. With energy prices down, families can breathe easier this summer. Thanks to Trump's energy independence policies, Americans are saving at the pump while building back strength at home. 7. Iran talks possible. Unlike Obama's secretive deals, Trump's approach is tough but open. No uranium was moved. Our intelligence watched closely. If talks happen, it'll be on America's terms. 8. Media leaks and FBI investigation. Fake news tried to sabotage this success, but the FBI is investigating who leaked classified intel. And if you think Trump's letting this slide, you haven't been paying attention. 9. Migrant children lies debunked. The Miami Herald smeared Trump with lies about migrant children. The truth? Trump's policies protect kids. Biden's open borders caused chaos, trafficking, and tragedy. That's the cold, hard fact. Divide and distract strategy exposed. The deep state and media are desperate to divide Trump's team. They're leaking stories about Tulsi Gabbard and J.D. Vance. Why? Because they're scared. Scared that Trump's winning. Again, Patriots, this is what winning looks like. The media can lie, the deep state can leak, and the global elites can panic, but nothing will stop the momentum of a fearless leader putting America first. Whether it's smashing Iran's nuclear program, securing historic peace, lowering your gas bill, or holding our allies accountable, Donald Trump is back, and he's not backing down. So if you're fired up like I am, do me a favor, smash that like button. Share this video with every America-loving patriot you know. Subscribe for more unfiltered truth the media won't show you, and drop a comment below. Let me know. Do you think this is the strongest moment of Trump's second term so far? Or is the best yet to come? Until next time, keep your flags flying, your faith strong, and never stop fighting for the red, white, and blue. This is what peace through strength looks like. God bless America.